Christmas morning is meant to feel cozy, right? Like cinnamon and pine branches and the soft murmur of family. Have you ever opened your phone on Christmas morning and realized your own family is celebrating without you in a house you own like you don't even exist? Because that's the moment I felt something snap inside me. Shock first, then rage, then this icy, crystal clear certainty. Oh, so this is who they really are. So yeah, Christmas is supposed to mean togetherness, warmth, tradition, all that cozy, glittery stuff. But for me, Christmas has started to feel like frostbite. Slow, numb, creeping, and impossible to ignore. I'm 36 now, and I've spent most of my adult life pretending it didn't hurt to be left out. Pretending family wasn't a word that could tighten around your throat like a hand. But this year didn't just hurt. It exposed something that had probably been broken for a long time. My name's Riley. I'm the oldest of three. Me, then my sister Tessa. She's 33, and our younger brother Sean, 29. Growing up, I was the easy one, not the favorite, not the sparkly one, not the one everyone rushed to soothe, just the one who was expected to understand. When Tessa threw tantrums, I was told, "Be patient, Riley." When Sean failed a class or crashed Dad's car, it was, "Don't be too hard on him. He's still figuring things out." That was basically the soundtrack of my childhood. You're the responsible one. You're the one we don't have to worry about. And at some point, that stopped sounding like a compliment and started sounding like a dismissal. Like, "We don't have to think about you. I left home at 18 for college and never really moved back. I built my life the way you do when you learn early that no one's coming to rescue you. I worked hard, like too hard. I started a tech company, nearly burned myself into the ground by 30, and then sold it for more money than I'll probably ever need. But I kept it quiet. No announcements. No flashy toys. No look at me moment. I still drive a 10-year-old Subaru. I wear clothes until they fade. And I never once told my family that on paper, I'm technically a multimillionaire. Not because I was trying to test them. Not because I wanted some dramatic gotcha. I just knew. Deep down, I knew money would change the way they saw me, and not in a good way. It would turn every conversation into a transaction, every visit into a subtle request. Tessa, though, Tessa has always lived for optics. She treats life like it's content, like she's constantly pitching a Hallmark movie, candid family brunches where somehow everyone matches, seasonal throw pillows, carefully curated smiles. She's married to Mark, who's just as obsessed with appearances. They have 2 kids, Ashton, 6, and Everly, and she calls them her miracles. She also insists everyone refers to them as the Littles, which, I don't know. It makes my skin crawl a little every time. Sean is different. Sean floats. That's the only way I can describe him. 1 month, he's selling real estate. Then he's doing landscape design. Then he's launching a podcast about mindful masculinity that disappears after 3 episodes. He's always been charming, though. The kind of charming that makes parents forget consequences exist. And my parents, Joyce and Daniel, are complicated. My mom calls herself brutally honest when she's really just mean with a smile. My dad is quieter, but he's got that passive-aggressive thing down to an art form. They tell themselves they mean well. Over time, their accidental slights started to feel less accidental. Like the time they forgot to tell me about Sean's engagement party, then acted confused that I was upset because we assumed you wouldn't be able to make it anyway. Or the time I gifted them a trip to Napa for their anniversary. They spent the entire trip posting photos captioned, "Thanks to our wonderful Tessa for organizing this." As if I didn't exist. And I told myself it was fine. I always told myself it was fine. Until this Christmas. 5 years ago, I moved to Seattle. Last summer, I bought a cabin outside Denver, a place with big windows, a fireplace that actually roars, and enough room for everyone to gather without stepping on each other. And I know how that sounds. Like I bought it to impress people. I didn't. I bought it because I wanted something that was mine, something peaceful. something solid. But I also thought, maybe foolishly, that it could be the start of something new. A fresh tradition. A place where the family could gather and maybe we could finally feel like a family. So back in September, I offered it up as a Christmas spot. I emailed pictures. I wrote a whole normal message. Plenty of room, cozy, beautiful snow, everyone welcome. I genuinely tried. No one responded. Not even a cute from Tessa. Then, in November, my mom casually mentioned, like she was talking about the weather, "Oh, Tessa's hosting this year. It just makes more sense with the kids." I nodded. I said I understood. But inside, something cracked. Because I had already decorated the cabin. I had blocked off the entire week in my calendar. I had done that thing I always do, quietly make space for people who don't make space for me. Still, I tried to be mature about it. I told myself maybe I'd spend Christmas alone. Invite a few friends. Go snowshoeing. Start my own tradition. I even shipped gifts to Tessa's house for Ashton and Everly, wrapped, labeled, no drama, because I didn't want the kids to feel like I disappeared. And then Christmas morning came. I was in the cabin, alone, drinking coffee in front of the fire, watching snow drift down past the windows. It was quiet in that peaceful way that almost makes you believe you're okay. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Tessa had tagged me in a photo on Instagram. The caption said, "Christmas morning with the whole fam. So blessed." I stared at it for a full minute, like my brain needed time to translate what my eyes were seeing. Then I opened it, and there they were. My parents. Tessa, Mark, Sean, the kids, even my Aunt Marlene, who I hadn't seen in years. All sitting around a massive fireplace I recognized immediately. Because it was mine. They were in my cabin. Every single one of them. I hadn't given them the code. I hadn't invited them. I hadn't even told them I wasn't coming. Because I never said the place was available. And yet somehow they had let themselves in, made themselves at home, and posted it like it was the most normal thing in the world. I zoomed in because part of me still wanted to believe I was wrong. My throw pillows, my rug, my kitchen in the background, and the mug in my dad's hand, there was a tiny chip on the rim from where I dropped it last month. This wasn't a mix-up. This wasn't, oops, wrong cabin. This was deliberate, and the rage didn't hit all at once. It came slow, like water heating to a boil. First disbelief, then humiliation, then something that tasted darker. Betrayal. I scrolled through the post. Dozens of photos. Ashton and Everly opening gifts under my tree. My mom and Tessa baking cookies in my kitchen. Sean raising one of my limited edition whiskey glasses, like he owned the place. Not one text. Not one call. Not one, "Hey, can we use it?" Not one, "We got here safe." Nothing. I almost threw my phone across the room. Instead, I inhaled slowly. My hands were shaking, but my mind was weirdly calm. I opened the comments, and I typed, "Love this. Just FYI, the cabin you're in, I own it. Tenants move in January 3rd. Then I hit send. 3 minutes later, the post vanished, and then the silence broke like glass. My phone started buzzing like it was possessed. 61 calls in an hour. 14 voicemails. Texts coming in like hailstones. "Riley, can we talk?" Why would you do that? Don't ruin this for the kids. It was a misunderstanding. But was it? I stood there in the quiet cabin, staring at the fire while the phone vibrated on the counter. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt awake, and I knew I wasn't letting this go. Not this time. For the first few hours, I ignored everything. I flipped my phone face down and let it buzz itself into exhaustion while I tried to calm the storm in my chest. But by the end of the day, 14 voicemails sat there like a pile of rocks. So I listened, not because I wanted peace, because I wanted to hear how they would explain stealing my space and erasing me at the same time. My mom's voicemail came first, sweet voice, sharp edges. "Riley, honey, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. We thought you weren't coming. And Tessa said it'd be fine to use the cabin. You never said you were using it, and it's not like we trashed anything. Please don't overreact. Call me. My dad's was next, low and stiff. This isn't the way to handle things, Riley. Family talks these things through. Don't make this about ownership. Call us back. Then Tessa, and her voice, God, she sounded offended. Like I had done something to her. Oh my God, Riley. Seriously? You're really going to put tenants in the cabin over Christmas without warning? You blindsided us. Everyone's upset, especially the kids. Ashton cried. Everly asked why Uncle Riley was being mean. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is so selfish. Selfish. That word almost made me laugh out loud. I was selfish for reclaiming my own property after they broke in and played family in it like I was dead? Then Sean. Short, annoyed like I was the problem. Bro, I don't know what the hell that comment was, but you need to chill. You weren't even coming. Nobody thought you cared. Don't burn bridges over this. It's Christmas. That one did it, because I had been chill my entire life. I had swallowed the hurt and forced the smile, and told myself I was mature for not reacting. But this wasn't a slip. This wasn't a scheduling mix-up. This was my entire family deciding I didn't matter enough to invite, enough to ask, enough to inform, and then calling me selfish for reacting. I didn't respond that day, or the next. 2 days later, I packed a few things and drove back to Seattle early. When I got there, a certified envelope was waiting in my mailbox from a real estate agency. I remember standing in the hallway, keys still in my hand, staring at it like it might be a bomb. I opened it. Inside was a lease agreement for the cabin, signed by Tessa. Tenant name filled out, Tessa Reynolds. Lease term, 1 year. Start date, December 15th. My hand started shaking so hard I had to sit down. There was also a note from the leasing agent. Thank you for finalizing this. We received the signed lease and key copies from your sister last week. We're excited to move forward with the property management partnership. Please let us know when you'd like the direct deposit info for rental income. Rental income partnership. I just stared, because in one envelope it clicked. The Christmas gathering at my cabin wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't we thought you weren't coming. It was planned. She had posed as me, used my name, my address, my property. She had given them keys, codes, access. The lease didn't have my signature, so legally it was void, but the audacity of it made my stomach flip. She wasn't just inconsiderate. She was bold enough to impersonate me on paper. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer. Rebecca has been my real estate attorney for years. Calm, no nonsense, terrifyingly competent. She flipped through the pages, then whistled under her breath. This is borderline fraud, she said. Definitely impersonation. She's lucky the agency didn't wire funds yet, or she'd be in deeper. I sat there gripping the edge of the chair like the ground had shifted under me. Rebecca leaned forward. Riley, I know this is family, but you need to decide how far you're willing to go. We can stop this, but it might get ugly. Ugly. I drove home with that word echoing in my skull because things were already ugly. This was just the first time I couldn't pretend otherwise. I didn't call Tessa. I didn't confront her right away because I wanted to hear it from her mouth. I wanted to see her face when she tried to spin it. So when my mom called again, her fourth call that day, I picked up. Hi, I said flat. Oh, honey, she breathed like we were about to heal. I'm so glad you answered. I've been worried sick. Really? I said, because it seems like you've all been having a great time. A pause. It wasn't personal, she said finally. You're always so busy. And Tessa, she had this whole thing planned. Planned, I repeated, voice tightening. So you knew it was my cabin. Another pause. Well, yes, but she said you weren't using it, and she thought it would be nice for everyone. She also signed a lease, I said. Silence. She what? My mom whispered. She submitted a forged lease to a rental agency, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Using my name, my address. She gave them keys and codes, access to property I own. That can't be right, my mom said, like denial could rewrite paperwork. Tessa wouldn't, she did. More silence. And then, because this is what my mother does, she tried to shrink it down. Well, maybe she thought you'd change your mind. You never said you'd be using it. I never said you could use it, I snapped. Let alone lease it out. Do you realize how insane this is? She huffed. You're blowing this out of proportion, Riley. It's family. Sometimes we do things informally. Forging my signature isn't informal, Mom. It's illegal. Click of her tongue. That annoyed little sound. Why are you being so harsh? It's Christmas. There it was. The guilt button. The one they'd been pressing my entire life. But it didn't work this time. Because you all made a choice, I said. You chose to go behind my back. You chose to erase me. So don't talk to me about Christmas. And I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her that week. 3 days later, Sean showed up in Seattle. I opened my door, and there he was, sheepish grin, hands in the pockets of a too expensive leather jacket, like he'd strolled over to borrow a charger. Bro, he said, let's talk. I didn't move. How did you get my address? He didn't even blink. Tessa. Of course. She said you'd cool off by now. I stepped aside, not because I was ready to forgive, but because I needed answers. We sat in my living room. I didn't offer him a drink. He looked around, whistled softly. This place is nice. Didn't realize you were doing this well. That comment hit me in a weird place. Like even now, he was still surprised I had a life when I wasn't playing background character in theirs. I keep my business private, I said. Yeah, he replied like that was suspicious. A long pause. Then, finally, I didn't know about the lease. I swear, I thought you were letting her use the place. And you didn't think it was weird that I wasn't there. I asked. That I hadn't called, posted, shown up, nothing. He shrugged. I figured you were doing your solo thing again. You're hard to read, man. I stared at him. Sean leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was being reasonable. Look, I get it. It was messed up. But you know how Tessa is. She thinks everything is hers by default. And that's supposed to make me feel better? No, he said quickly. And she knows she crossed a line, but if you press charges or sue or whatever, Mom's going to have a meltdown. Dad, too. You're going to nuke the family over this. I let that sit for a second. Then I said, quietly, they already nuked it. He rubbed his jaw, uncomfortable. So what now? I don't know, I said, because that was the truth. But I'm not sweeping this under the rug. He left soon after. No argument. No real apology either. Just escape. That night, I got a text from Tessa. No, sorry. No, can we talk? Just this. Sean told me you're being serious about this. Riley, you wouldn't actually ruin our family over a cabin. You've always had a flair for dramatics, but this is too far. Let it go. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed one sentence. I've let a lot go, Tessa. Not this. And that's when everything really started unraveling. The fallout wasn't loud. No screaming match in the rain. No dramatic Christmas dinner showdown. It was quieter than that. A slow, suffocating silence, like cold air seeping under a door. The family group chat went dark. Not even the usual passive-aggressive, hope everyone's doing well messages that pretend nothing happened. It was like I'd been neatly carved out. January came fast. The Denver cabin filled with the sounds of movers and paperwork. I flew back for 2 days to oversee the transition, walk-throughs, signatures, keys handed off. I changed the door codes, updated the property management under my name only, removed every backup key, locked everything down, literally and figuratively. And standing there in that empty, cleaned-out cabin, I felt this weird hollowness. Not because I missed them, because I realized the version of family I'd been chasing didn't exist. It never had. That night, I sat on the floor wrapped in a throw blanket, drinking tea that tasted like paper. The decorations were boxed. The place didn't feel like a shrine anymore, and oddly that made it easier to let go. I stopped waiting for people who weren't coming. The next few months were quiet, but not empty. I threw myself into work, not as escapism, but as purpose. I'd had an idea for a while, a mentorship platform for young entrepreneurs who didn't come from flashy backgrounds or elite universities. Quiet builders, overlooked minds, people like me, expected to understand, while other people got spotlight and grace. I started sketching it out. Late nights, early mornings, whiteboards and wireframes. Methodical. Calm. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need applause this time. Something changes when you stop trying to be seen by people who keep turning their heads away. At first, it feels like disappearing. Then it starts to feel like power. I built a small team, 2 designers, 1 back-end engineer, 1 community lead. Freelancers I trusted. We called it Foundry because it was about forging something real. At night, I walked around my Seattle neighborhood with no headphones, no distractions. I needed to learn how to be alone without feeling punished for it. I started noticing little things I'd ignored for years. An even sidewalk near the corner bakery, an old man in a blue cap who always nodded at me, a cat that seemed to own the entire block. The world had been there the whole time. I'd just been looking somewhere else. I also started therapy, not just because of the cabin, because I realized I'd been carrying too much for too long and calling it strength. My therapist, Mara, was gentle and sharp in the way that actually changes you. She didn't push at first. She let me talk until the words ran out. Then one Thursday she said, "You said something interesting last week. You said, 'I'm the one who never needed anything.' Do you think that was true?" I shrugged. I think it's what they wanted to believe. She nodded slowly. "And what did you want?" Such a simple question. And I didn't have an answer. After that, I started journaling. Not every day, just when it felt like too much. I wrote things I'd never said out loud. How I hated being the easy kid. How it wasn't easy to be quiet. How it hurt to send gifts no one acknowledged, to send messages no one answered, to show up and be invisible. I wrote about the cabin, about Christmas morning, about seeing my own fireplace on my phone and feeling my body go cold. And slowly, I started feeling something that wasn't peace, exactly. Clarity. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them. The family I'd built in my head, the one that cared, that called, that showed up. That family didn't exist. And grieving it like a death was strangely healing. In February, Mark, Tessa's husband, messaged me. "Hey man, I know things are tense. Just wanted you to know I had no idea about the lease stuff. That was all Tessa. We didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at it. No apology. Just a neat little attempt to wash his hands clean. I didn't reply. 2 days later, I got a call from a Denver number. I let it go to voicemail. "Hi Riley, this is Kathy from Snowview Elementary. Everly listed you as an emergency contact on her school file. There's no issue. We just wanted to confirm if that's still accurate." I blinked at my phone. I wasn't even told I was listed. They didn't want me at Christmas, but they wanted me available in case something went wrong. Still useful, huh? I forwarded the voicemail to Tessa with one line. "Remove me from the school contact list immediately." No response. Of course. Foundry launched in April. Soft launch, invite only. We didn't go viral. We didn't need to. But people wrote to us. Long emails. Real stories. Gratitude that made my throat tighten. Finally, something built for people like me. I saved every message. Printed a few. Framed one. I didn't tell my family. They wouldn't have asked anyway. In May, Sean messaged me again. No greeting. Just a screenshot of my parents' Mother's Day brunch photos. Balloons, cake, captions about blessings. Me. Nowhere. Not a mention. Under the screenshot, Sean typed, "You really done with them?" I stared for a while. Then I wrote back. I think they've been done with me for a long time. I'm just catching up." He didn't reply. That summer, I went back to the cabin, not to stay, just maintenance. The tenants were out for the weekend. It was quiet, clean, not mine in the emotional sense anymore. I walked the trails nearby, breathing in cold morning air, listening to the trees that didn't ask me to earn my place. On the way out, I stopped at a little gift shop by the lake. A carved wooden sign caught my eye. "Family isn't who you come from. It's who stands with you when you stop trying to earn it." I bought it and hung it by my apartment door. The next time my phone rang with a family name, I let it ring out. And I didn't even flinch, because I wasn't falling anymore. I was climbing, and I was starting to like the view. By early June, I felt different, emotionally, mentally, even physically. I moved into a new condo near Pike Place Market. Exposed brick, wide windows, a sliver of water view if you tilted your head just right. Not extravagant, but mine. No shared keys. No forced smiles. No pretending. Just peace. I also handled legal things more seriously. After the forged lease incident, I rerouted the cabin ownership through a holding company I set up quietly, Lurwood Ventures. Publicly, my name wasn't on the title anymore. Taxes, utilities, contracts, everything pointed to Lurwood. If anyone went snooping, they'd hit a wall. Why? Because I wanted to see if Tessa would try again, and I had a feeling she would. Late July, I got an email from the property manager. "Hi, Riley. Just wanted to confirm something strange. A woman named Tess Reynolds emailed asking to regain management access to the cabin. She claimed to be the owner and sent a fake utility bill as proof. Thought you should know." I sat there staring at the screen. She was still trying, still clinging to the belief that if she pushed hard enough, someone would hand her what she wanted. But I wasn't folding anymore. I thanked the manager, asked them to log it, and then I contacted Rebecca. We drafted a cease and desist letter, not just for Tessa, for all of them, because the more I looked at my life, the more I saw how deep the entitlement ran. It wasn't just the cabin. It was the phone plans I'd paid since college, the credit card I co-signed for Sean that was somehow still in use, the streaming accounts, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, me paying, them watching. Even the Ring account I set up for my parents when they couldn't figure out how to install it. I was the fallback plan, the silent donor, the emotional janitor. So I made a spreadsheet and started cutting cords. Quiet disentanglement. First, I froze the shared credit card. Sent Sean a simple email. "This card is being deactivated. Any balances are your responsibility going forward. Please don't contact me about payment. I won't be covering it." Second, I shut down the shared streaming accounts. Third, I removed myself from every emergency contact list I could find. Schools, doctors, even the vet for Tessa's dog. Yes, somehow I was listed there too. Fourth, I formalized Lurwood Ventures as the owner of all 3 of my properties, the cabin, my condo, and a duplex I'd bought quietly as an investment. All trust managed, all ironclad. But I didn't want to just disappear and let them keep telling their story about me. I wanted them to hear the truth out loud. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I invited them all to lunch. Quiet restaurant downtown. Wood-paneled, linen napkins, the kind of place where waiters don't write anything down. I booked a private room, just in case voices rose, or truths finally did. Tessa arrived first, of course. On time. Flustered. Wearing her polished mom uniform, soft beige cardigan, gold pendant necklace, oversized sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She looked around like she owned the room and barely acknowledged me when I stood. Then Sean, 10 minutes late, smelling like cologne and carelessness. Then my parents, my mother in pearls and pastel lipstick, my dad quiet and unreadable. We sat. Nobody ordered. They waited for me to speak. So I let the silence stretch until it felt heavy. Then I folded my hands and said, I wanted to say something once. Just once. and I wanted you all to hear it at the same time." Tessa rolled her eyes. "Riley, if this is about the cabin again, it's not just about the cabin," I said steady. "It's about everything." They stared. I kept going. For years I let things slide. I paid. I showed up. I didn't complain. I thought that's what family meant. My mom's mouth tightened. But now I realize it was just permission. Permission for all of you to keep taking and pretending it was normal. My mom frowned. "That's not fair." I felt my pulse in my throat. No. What's not fair is being excluded from Christmas in my own home. What's not fair is being told I'm selfish for reacting to fraud. What's not fair is being treated like a backup generator that no one wants until the lights go out. Sean shifted in his chair. Tessa crossed her arms like a teenager. I slid a small folder across the table. Inside was a printed breakdown of everything I'd closed, deactivated, transferred, and removed. No drama. Just facts. These are the accounts I've shut down, the cards I've closed, the access I've revoked, I said. Going forward, I'm not your fallback. I'm not your sponsor. And I'm not your scapegoat. Tessa scoffed. Is this revenge? Some power trip? I looked her in the eye. No, this is freedom. Yours and mine. My dad finally spoke, voice cautious. Son, this seems a little drastic. I held his gaze. No, Dad. What was drastic was forging my name. What was drastic was cutting me out of holidays and then acting shocked when I didn't want to fund the next one. They didn't apologize. I didn't expect them to. I paid the bill and left. And weirdly, I didn't feel devastated. I felt clear, like I'd finally stopped begging people to admit what they'd done. Foundry hit its stride that summer. We brought in mentors, self-made business owners, investors who built wealth without Ivy League degrees or flashy VC deals. We partnered with local colleges and incubators. We launched a podcast. I did a few interviews anonymously at first, then eventually by name. One ended up in a business newsletter Tessa subscribes to. She didn't reach out. 2 weeks later, I got a LinkedIn connection request from Mark. No message. Just a silent little bridge. I didn't accept. Not yet. Because I wasn't done building something they couldn't hijack, twist into a photo op, or take credit for. And here's the thing I learned. Revenge doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it's quiet, surgical. It doesn't demand applause. It just removes your access, removes your control, removes your ability to pretend. By September, Foundry had grown from a small mentorship circle into something bigger. Angel investors were interested, not because I needed money, but because they believed in what we were building. We weren't just helping entrepreneurs. We were teaching people how to build without a safety net, without a family name, without someone co-signing their dream. And in the middle of all that, something almost poetic happened. I got a call from a nonprofit I'd worked with before. Small business grants for single parents, mostly women. They were losing funding. A mutual contact said they needed someone to step in quietly, help restructure operations, tighten the board, rebuild systems. No fanfare, just someone who knew how to rebuild. I asked for the board list, and there it was, Tessa's name. Apparently, she'd been on the board for 2 years, a community face. Social media, fundraising events, donor dinners, surface-level stuff. And honestly, she's good at that. She's good at looking polished while standing near other people's work. I met the executive director, Dana, for coffee. I explained who I was, what Foundry was. I didn't mention Tessa. Dana's eyes lit up. We've been trying to build something like this in-house, but we don't have the tech or staff. I offered to help. No salary, no title, just a consulting agreement so I could get access to the structure and fix what needed fixing. She said yes. And just like that, I stepped into my sister's world, not as her brother, as the person she never saw coming. For 6 weeks, I worked quietly, reviewed budgets, streamlined workflows, built systems that actually made sense. I hosted a virtual workshop on funding strategies that drew more attendance than any of their donor dinners ever had. Dana was thrilled. The board was thrilled. They offered me a formal seat. I accepted. Tessa still didn't know I was involved. We were basically ships passing in adjacent inboxes. Then came their annual Grant Gala. Big venue, open bar, silent auction, all the right polished vibes. I was invited as a board member. So was Tessa. I didn't even RSVP. Instead, I asked Dana for a favor. I offered to sponsor the entire event anonymously, venue, catering, AV, everything. No name on banners. No speech. No spotlight. Just one request. I wanted to handle the donor appreciation video. She agreed. I called in a favor from a videographer friend. We gathered footage from Foundry mentors, testimonials, real stories, people who turned side hustles into storefronts, people who paid rent from their first freelance gigs, people who didn't have to choose between daycare and survival anymore. I narrated it myself. Calm, simple, no bragging, just truth. And at the end, the screen went black and white text appeared. This event was made possible by a silent investor, someone who believes in second chances, even when others only remember the first mistake. Dana told me the room went dead quiet. Tessa was at the front table. She clapped politely. Then Dana got up to speak, thanked the board, thanked the mentors, thanked the donors. And then, like it was the most casual detail in the world, she said, "We're especially grateful to our new operations advisor, Riley, whose platform Foundry is now an official partner and whose generosity made tonight possible." Dana told me later, Tessa's face turned to stone, because I hadn't just shown up. I'd built something under her nose. I'd lifted the exact community she claimed to champion. Without her help, without her approval, without ever asking for a seat at her curated table. Tessa didn't come over that night. No confrontation. No scene. 2 days later, she resigned from the board. No explanation. No farewell post. Just gone. And then the ripple started. Once people realized she wasn't involved in Foundry, had never been, some of the nonprofit's top donors started asking questions. One donor reached out to me directly. "We always assumed you two were partners." She always implied, I replied, polite as ice. She implies a lot of things. The next time I heard from Tessa, it wasn't a message. It was a podcast, a lifestyle show, episode about overcoming toxic family dynamics. She told this neat little story about being betrayed by a sibling who used their success to sabotage her community work. She never said my name. She didn't have to. And I didn't respond, because while she recorded her curated narrative, I was closing a partnership with a university incubator that would give Foundry access to 1,200 students annually. Real people, real change. In November, Sean reached out again. This time his message felt different. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say, I think I get it now. What it feels like to be left out. Things have been weird. Mom and Dad barely talk to me unless they need something. Tessa is freezing me out. It sucks." I stared at that for a long time. Then I wrote back, "I'm not happy you're hurting, but I am glad you're starting to see it." A pause. Then he replied, "Can we talk sometime? Just us." And I said yes, because not all bridges need to burn. Some just need new architects. As for my parents, the silence stretched into winter. No calls, no cards, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook tag. And somehow, I felt lighter than I ever had. I spent the holidays with close friends, my chosen family. We cooked, laughed, stayed up late. I hosted them in my condo. And for the first time in years, I didn't keep checking my phone for obligatory family messages. None were coming. And I was finally okay with that. Then, on Christmas morning, my phone buzzed. Not a call. A text. From Sean. It was a photo of him and his girlfriend, someone new, someone warm, smiling in front of a tiny tree, holding mugs that said starting over in gold cursive. Below it he'd written, "No family drama this year. Just peace. Hope you found yours too." I smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I meant it, because revenge isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's reclamation, reclaiming your space, reclaiming your peace, reclaiming the version of yourself they tried to convince you didn't matter. I didn't just walk away. I rose. "So tell me, honestly, what would you have done if you saw your whole family celebrating Christmas in your home without you? Would you have called the cops, played it quiet like I did, or cut them off immediately? I really want to know."